The Alliance Summit Hall glowed with bright silver lights that reflected off the tall crystal pillars. Representatives from every known species had come together for one purpose: the bond selection ceremony. This ceremony happened only once every few decades, and each leader was expected to choose a partner from another race. These bonds created peace, trust, and friendship between worlds that were once strangers. The hall was filled with excited voices, fluttering wings, robotic tones, and soft hums. Everyone looked ready to choose, ready to form connections that would guide the future. At the edge of this busy and colorful hall stood Queen Varasha of the Nocthir. She stood tall and still, her long dark cloak flowing around her like a shadow. Her red eyes were calm, but anyone who looked closely could see the quiet sadness behind them. The Nocthir race was often called vampire-like by other species because of their pale skin, sharp features, and ancient feeding customs. But Varasha knew her people were not monsters. They had a long history of wisdom, honor, and peaceful rule. Yet fear was powerful, and misunderstanding was stronger than truth. While others were chosen quickly, Varasha stood alone. Every pairing brought applause, but none of the representatives walked toward her. Some glanced at her, and then looked away quickly. Others whispered among themselves, making assumptions based on old stories and rumors. No one approached her. No one spoke to her. It was as if she was an untouchable statue in the corner of the hall. Varasha did not show anger. She was a queen. She understood dignity. But deep inside, she felt the sting of being avoided once again. She wanted an alliance just like everyone else. She wanted to show her people that they had a place in the galaxy. She wanted someone to look at her without fear. Still, she remained silent and distant, hiding her true feelings behind a mask of calm. Among the humans attending the ceremony was Ethan Hayes. He was not a high-ranking official or a famous hero. He was known mainly as a brave explorer, someone who liked traveling into regions others avoided. He believed every species had beauty and value. His brown eyes moved around the hall, observing the pairings. Humans, reptilians, energy-based beings, everyone was finding someone. But then he saw Varasha standing alone, an island in the middle of a crowded ocean. Ethan had never seen a Nocthir queen in person before. She looked powerful, calm, and strangely graceful. But what caught Ethan's attention was not her appearance. It was her loneliness. He could see it clearly when others avoided her gaze. He felt a sudden sense of unfairness. Why was she being ignored simply because of old stories? Why was everyone choosing comfort over understanding? As the ceremony continued, the hall grew louder with celebration. But Varasha's side remained quiet. Ethan noticed how her fingers tightened slightly against the folds of her cloak. That small movement told him more than any words. She was trying not to show her disappointment. The final pairings were being announced. One by one, the last few leaders found partners. Soon the hall would close, and anyone left unpaired would be seen as unworthy or too risky to bond with. Ethan looked from the happy groups to the silent queen. He took a deep breath. Many humans like to say humanity had courage. He wondered if he had enough of it now. Instead of staying with the other humans, Ethan stepped forward. His footsteps echoed softly across the polished floor. Many heads turned, their conversations stopping as they saw him moving in a surprising direction. Varasha raised her eyes slightly, expecting to see someone passing by. Her expression changed when she realized the human was walking toward her slowly but surely. Ethan stopped in front of her. Varasha looked down at him with calm curiosity. No one had come this close to her all evening. The hall became unusually silent, as if everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Ethan swallowed nervously, but he kept his voice steady. He extended his hand toward her, palm open. He did not bow or tremble. He simply offered it with respect. "I would like to form a bond with you," he said softly so only she could hear. Varasha's eyes widened slightly. For a moment she did not speak. Not because she was offended, but because she was surprised, truly surprised. She had expected the night to end with her standing alone. Once again, she had accepted it. But now, a human stood in front of her, offering something she had almost stopped hoping for. Many around them gasped quietly, shocked that a human would choose the Nocthir queen. Varasha's red eyes searched Ethan's face. She looked for fear, but she found none. She looked for hidden motive, but she still found none. She found only sincerity, and sincerity was rare. Varasha slowly lifted her hand and placed it gently in his. Her touch was cool, but her gesture was warm. She inclined her head, a small but meaningful sign of acceptance. "You choose without fear," she said in her calm voice. "That is unusual." Ethan gave a small smile. Maybe fear isn't the best way to understand someone. For the first time that night, something like amusement touched Varasha's expression. She was used to being respected, but not understood. This human was different. He was the first person in many years to approach her without hesitation. The announcement system echoed across the hall. "The final pairing has been made. Queen Varasha of the Nocthir and human representative Ethan Hayes." Whispers rushed across the hall like wind moving through grass. Some were confused, others surprised, and a few seemed impressed. Varasha ignored them. Ethan did too. For a moment, they simply looked at one another, two individuals from two different worlds, forming a connection no one expected. After the ceremony ended, species began leaving the hall with their new partners. Varasha and Ethan remained for a moment longer. She watched him with curiosity. "Most would not have approached me," she said softly. "You must know the stories others tell." "I do," Ethan admitted. "But stories aren't always true. And even if they were, I wanted to understand you myself." Varasha felt a small warmth inside her chest, something she had not felt for a very long time. Trust was not easy for her people. But Ethan's tone was genuine. "If you wish to understand me," Varasha said, "then you will join me on my ship. We must discuss the details of our bond." Ethan nodded. "I'd like that." As they walked out together, many eyes followed them. But for once, Varasha did not feel alone under their gaze. A human had reached for her when no one else did, and even though their bond was new, something inside her felt lighter than it had in centuries. The alliance between a human and the Nocthir queen had begun with a simple act, a hand reaching across the space between two misunderstood worlds. Neither of them knew yet how deeply this choice would change their lives, but the first step had been taken, and it carried the quiet power of hope. Ethan followed Queen Varasha through the long, shining hallway that led to the boarding platform. The floor was made of dark crystal that reflected their footsteps like moving shadows. Several Nocthir guards stood along the walls, their armor sleek and dark, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. They looked at Ethan with curiosity but did not stop him. If Varasha accepted someone, her guards respected that choice. As they reached the platform, Ethan saw the Nocthir flagship waiting for them, a massive ship shaped like a crescent moon, with gentle violet lights running along its surface. It looked quiet, elegant, and mysterious at the same time. For a moment Ethan wondered if stepping onto this ship would change his life in ways he could not imagine. Still, he felt strangely calm. Varasha noticed his silence. "Does the ship make you uneasy?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "No. It's beautiful. Just different. I've never seen anything like it." A hint of pride touched Varasha's eyes. "My people design our vessels with care. Function and grace must exist together." They walked onto the ship, and the entrance sealed behind them with a soft sound. Inside, the air felt slightly cooler. Soft purple lights glowed along the ceiling, and the walls had smooth patterns that looked like moving shadows. It felt like walking inside a living work of art. Varasha guided Ethan through a corridor that opened into a large chamber. The space was filled with floating plants that glowed lightly, their roots suspended in the air, as if supported by invisible threads. The chamber felt peaceful, almost like a quiet garden. "This is the Luma Garden," Varasha explained. "It helps calm the mind. Many visitors find it soothing." Ethan looked around with wonder. "It's amazing. I didn't expect something so peaceful from a species others are scared of. Varasha glanced at him. Fear often hides the truth. They stood together for a moment, both looking at the floating plants. Then Varasha turned toward a smaller door. We should discuss the bond, she said. There are things you must understand. Ethan followed her into a round meeting room with 2 seats made of soft material that shaped itself to whoever sat on it. Ethan took one seat, and Varasha gracefully took the other. The door closed behind them, leaving the room quiet. Varasha began speaking calmly. The bond between our species is not only an agreement. It is a promise. We support each other in diplomacy, learning, and defense. Many fear bonding with a Nocthir because they misunderstand our tradition of energy sharing. Ethan nodded, listening carefully. Energy sharing? Like a ritual? Yes, Varasha replied. We take energy from our partners, but not in a harmful way. It is a symbolic gesture. A Nocthir queen like me takes only a small amount, just enough to connect our life forces. It is not dangerous. Ethan could see how seriously she explained it. She wanted him to understand, not fear her. I believe you, he said simply. Varasha paused, watching him. Many people had told her they believed her, but their eyes always revealed hidden fear. Ethan's eyes did not. That made her feel something she could not name. She continued. The bond also means we must trust each other. You will represent humanity when you stand beside me. And I will represent the Nocthir when I stand beside you. Ethan smiled a little. I don't know if I'm ready to represent all of humanity. Varasha tilted her head slightly. You chose me without fear when others would not approach. That action alone speaks for your people more than you realize. Ethan felt warmth at her words. He didn't know if he deserved such praise, but the sincerity in her voice felt real. Before he could answer, the ship suddenly shook. The gentle lights flickered, and a deep alarm tone echoed through the hallway outside. Varasha rose instantly, her calm expression tightening with focus. We are under attack. Ethan stood quickly. By who? The Varkul, Varasha said. They oppose the alliance. They fear unity among species will weaken their control in certain regions. They often strike first. The alarm grew louder. Varasha moved toward the door, and Ethan followed her. As they stepped into the corridor, guards were already rushing toward defense stations. The ship trembled again, harder this time. We must reach the command center, Varasha said. Stay close to me. Ethan nodded and kept pace beside her. The Nocthir guards moved aside to let them pass. The hallway lights turned a deeper red, signaling danger. The ship's voice system made announcements in the Nocthir language, sharp, rhythmic tones that Ethan couldn't understand but recognized as urgent. When they reached the command center, the doors slid open to reveal a room filled with holographic screens, glowing symbols, and officers managing controls. A large projection of the surrounding space showed 3 Varkul ships approaching, firing energy pulses at the Nocthir vessel. Varasha stepped forward with authority. Status. An officer bowed slightly. Shields at 60%. Weapons charged. They attacked without warning. Ethan looked at the hologram, noticing the Varkul ships were heavily armored. Their designs were rough and aggressive, unlike the graceful Nocthir craft. They seemed built for intimidation and war. Varasha turned to Ethan. You wished to understand my people. Now you will also understand our enemies. Ethan's jaw tightened. What can I do to help? Several officers looked at him with confusion, but Varasha seemed to consider his question seriously. You have studied ship tactics, have you not? She asked. I've studied exploration routes and defensive strategies for small vessels, Ethan replied. Not command-level battle tactics, but I can think fast. Varasha nodded once. Then stand here. She pointed beside the tactical screen. Watch the patterns of the enemy. Their attack habits usually reveal weaknesses. Ethan did as she said, studying the attack lines. The Varkul ships fired in a rotating pattern, 2 ships attacking, while the third repositioned. Ethan remembered a similar pattern from a human training simulation. They leave a blind spot when the rotating ship moves, Ethan said. It's small, but it lasts a few seconds. If your ship can shift direction fast enough, you can fire at that moment. Varasha turned her red eyes toward him. Show us. Ethan pointed at the hologram. Right there. When this ship moves out and the other moves in, there's a gap. If you target it directly, Varasha raised her hand. Adjust targeting. Prepare to fire on the next rotation. The officers followed her command immediately. As the Varkul ships rotated again, Varasha gave the order. Fire. A beam of precise, controlled energy shot from the Nocthir vessel. It hit the exposed side of the rotating Varkul ship. The hologram flared as the enemy shield flickered and dropped by nearly half. Several officers gasped softly. Varasha looked at Ethan with unmistakable approval. Well calculated, she said. Ethan felt a rush of pride, but there was no time to celebrate. The ship trembled as another blast hit them. We must not let them damage the engine core, Varasha said. If they destroy it, we cannot escape. The enemy ships continued attacking in tighter formation now, trying to overwhelm the Nocthir defenses. Ethan studied the screen again. They're changing strategy. They're preparing a focused strike. If they hit the same point enough times, Varasha finished the sentence quietly. Our shields will fail. Ethan exhaled slowly. What now? Varasha turned to her officers. Prepare evasive maneuvers. Shift energy to the forward shields. We will not let them break us. Her calm voice cut through the panic. She stood tall, her presence powerful, her command steady. Ethan watched her with admiration. She was not just a queen, she was a leader who protected her people with fierce certainty. The ship moved sharply, avoiding the next attack. Lights flashed, and alarms echoed. But Varasha remained unshaken. She touched a control panel and projected a new strategy onto the hologram. This is our counterattack. Before she could finish, the ship rocked violently. Sparks flew from a panel nearby. They hit the outer wing, an officer shouted. Varasha's eyes narrowed. Then, we must end this quickly. She looked at Ethan again. Stay with me. Ethan nodded without hesitation. Together, they faced the danger ahead, human and Nocthir side by side, as the battle continued to shake the future of their unexpected bond. The ship continued shaking as the battle grew louder and more intense. Ethan held onto the edge of the control table while Varasha stood firmly in front of the main display. Even with the enemy closing in, she did not show fear. Her calm strength gave the entire command center a quiet courage. Every officer turned toward her for direction, trusting she would guide them through the danger. Another blast hit the side of the ship, throwing sparks into the air. Ethan covered his face with his arm, blinking through the bright flashes. Varasha stepped toward a damaged control panel and touched it gently. The panel repaired itself with soft glowing threads of energy. Our systems can handle limited damage, she said. But not forever. Ethan nodded, looking at the hologram. The Varkul are getting closer. They're trying to push you into a corner. Varasha moved her eyes across the display. They believe the Nocthir are easy targets because many species fear us and hesitate to offer help. They think we stand alone. Ethan stepped beside her. You're not alone now. Varasha turned her head slightly, meeting his eyes. There was something warm in her expression, something she did not show often. But the moment passed quickly as the ship shook again. Engine shields at 40%, an officer reported. Varasha tapped a command. Redirect power from the rear shield. The officer looked surprised. Your Majesty, the rear shield is protecting our energy store. If the front breaks, Varasha said calmly, the ship breaks. We must hold the line. The officer nodded and followed her command. Ethan studied the pattern of attacks again. The Varkul ships were now circling the Nocthir vessel, trying to overwhelm it with constant fire. The Nocthir ship was fast, but not fast enough to dodge everything. Still, Varasha managed to keep everyone focused, giving orders with precision. They think force is all they need, Ethan said. But their strategy has a weakness. Varasha looked at him. Explain. They're too focused forward. They're trying to crush your defenses head-on. They're not paying attention to their own rear angles. Varasha raised a brow slightly. A bold assumption. It's true, Ethan insisted. Look at this. He pointed to the hologram. When they circle, their back engines are exposed for a moment. You could strike there. It won't destroy them, but it will slow them. Varasha considered this. A slowed enemy becomes a vulnerable enemy. She gave the order, and the Nocthir gunners prepared to fire. The next time the Varkul ships rotated, the Nocthir vessel released a sharp pulse of energy aimed at the exposed rear engines. The shot hit perfectly. The enemy ship's movement faltered, its rotation slowing, and its circle breaking apart. A murmur of approval went through the room. Well done, Varasha said quietly. Before Ethan could answer, the remaining Varkul ships changed their pattern again. They moved together, aligning side by side. Ethan frowned. That's not normal for them. They are preparing a convergence beam, Varasha said, her tone tightening. A combined attack. Strong enough to break our shields completely. Ethan's heart dropped. How do we stop it? We cannot stop it, Varasha said softly. But we can avoid it. The ship moved sharply, dipping downward into a narrow path between two debris clusters. The maneuver was dangerous. Even the slightest miscalculation would tear the ship apart. Officers held their breath as the vessel slid between floating rocks and broken metal fragments. Varasha guided the ship with steady hands, her eyes glowing faintly as she connected with the vessel's control systems. Ethan watched her in awe. It was as if she and the ship understood each other without words. When they emerged from the debris field, the convergence beam fired, but it missed, shooting past them like a bright, destructive wave. We're safe. For the moment, Ethan said. Varasha nodded but did not relax. They will try again. They do not retreat easily. The officers returned to work, adjusting shield levels and preparing weapons. Ethan's mind raced. He needed to find something, anything that could shift the battle in their favor. Then he noticed something strange on the hologram. Wait, he said. Look at this. Varasha stepped beside him. What do you see? The damaged Varkul ship, Ethan said. It's releasing a signal. Maybe they're calling for backup. No, Varasha said. That is not a call. That is a marker. They are marking our location for a final strike. Ethan felt a chill. A final strike? From what? Varasha turned slowly toward him. From their main destroyer. The Varkul send it only when they intend to end a conflict completely. Ethan swallowed. How long until it arrives? Varasha pressed a sequence on the panel. A new projection appeared, a massive ship moving through hyperspace. 7 minutes, she said. Ethan exhaled slowly. What do we do? Varasha stared at the projection. We evacuate the civilians on board. We prepare for survival. Ethan looked at her sharply. You're giving up? She met his eyes, and there was no fear in hers, only responsibility. I am protecting my people. Ethan shook his head. You don't have to surrender. There has to be a way out of this. Varasha's expression softened slightly. You are brave, Ethan Hayes. But courage does not change reality. Ethan moved closer. Sometimes it does. Varasha looked at him, seeing the determination in his face. She admired it, though she did not say so. Before she could respond, the ship trembled once more, and an officer called out. The Varkul are preparing another convergence beam. They want to weaken us before the destroyer arrives, Varasha said. Ethan's mind worked quickly. Then we need to disrupt their formation. Varasha raised an eyebrow. How? They expect you to dodge again, Ethan said. So don't. Move toward them instead. Several officers gasped. That is too dangerous, one said. Varasha held up a hand, silencing them. Explain your reasoning. If you move forward, Ethan said, their angles will break. They won't be aligned anymore. Their beam will destabilize. Varasha studied the hologram. If you are wrong, we will be destroyed. If we do nothing, Ethan said. The destroyer will finish the job anyway. Varasha stood still for a moment. Then she said, Helm, Forward thrust. The officer hesitated but obeyed her command. The ship moved forward suddenly. The Varkul ships hesitated, confused by the unexpected move. Their alignment broke apart, and their convergence beam wavered and collapsed before it could form. Ethan exhaled in relief. It worked. Varasha turned to him with a calm but warm expression. It worked because you think differently. You see what others cannot. Before he could respond, the hologram flickered as a massive new signature appeared. The Varkul destroyer had arrived. It was enormous, larger than the Nocthir flagship, with glowing red lines pulsing across its dark hull. Officers looked at the display with fear. Varasha lifted her chin. Prepare all systems. We will face them. Ethan stepped beside her. We're not running? No, Varasha said. Running would show weakness. Standing together might give us a chance. Ethan nodded. Then I'm with you. Varasha looked at him, her expression softening just slightly. I know. The destroyer charged its primary weapon. The glow lit up the entire hologram. The air grew thick with tension as every Nocthir officer waited for Varasha's command. She stepped forward, her voice clear. All units prepare to defend. Together, Ethan stood at her side, ready to face whatever happened next. Whatever came, they would face it not as strangers but as allies, bound by choice, courage, and the first sparks of trust. The final confrontation had begun. The human named Aaron stood on the quiet balcony of the alien palace, feeling the cold night wind brush across his face. Far behind him, the celebration hall was still full of lights, noise, and loud joy. Every species in the Alliance was celebrating their victory and their new partnerships. Friends, scientists, warriors, diplomats, everyone had someone. Everyone had found a partner. Everyone except the one person who had expected to be left alone forever. The alien vampire queen, Sarathia. She stood a few steps away from Aaron now, watching him silently as the moons of her world hung above them like silver lanterns. Her long, dark hair floated in the wind, and her eyes, once feared by every empire, had softened with something she herself did not fully understand. She had lived centuries. She had conquered stars. She had ruled entire sectors of the galaxy, but no one had ever reached for her hand the way Aaron had. He was only human, fragile, short-lived, mortal. Yet his simple gesture carried a weight she could not ignore. Aaron turned toward her. Are you sure you want to be out here? The others probably want to speak with their queen. They always want to speak with their queen, Sarathia said quietly. But you are the first who wanted to speak with me. They want to. They always want to speak with me. She looked away, as if the thought itself embarrassed her. Vampirian royalty never showed weakness. Yet here she was, feeling something unfamiliar and strangely warm. Aaron laughed softly. I'm just a human, nothing special. Sarathia's wings twitched ever so slightly, a sign of disbelief. You are wrong. You stood beside me during the final battle. You spoke to me as if I was simply a woman, not a queen. And when everyone chose someone else, you walked toward me. That's because you looked lonely, he said honestly. Lonely. The word struck her harder than any enemy weapon. She had been surrounded by millions all her life, soldiers, servants, nobles, but never once had someone looked at her and seen a lonely person, rather than a powerful ruler. Sarathia stepped closer to him. Humans always surprise. Aaron hesitated before speaking. I didn't just reach for your hand because you were alone. I did it because I wanted to. She froze. Not visibly, not dramatically, but inside, something ancient and cold paused, then cracked. For centuries, she believed no one would ever choose her for anything except fear or advantage. Yet this small human, this stubborn man from an unremarkable blue planet, had chosen her simply because he wanted to. A strange warmth spread through her chest. Why? She asked. Why not? Aaron replied with a smile. You're strong, brave, loyal, And when the battle ended, you were the only one who looked like the night sky had forgotten to shine for you. He stepped a bit closer, careful but not afraid. And I thought, maybe I could help bring some light back. Sarathia exhaled slowly. Humans live short lives. Too short. 40, 40, 40, maybe. But we live them fully. And you would spend it near me, knowing what I am? I already did, he said. And I'm still here. For a moment, neither spoke. Only the sound of distant music and the gentle wind filled the balcony. Her wings folded behind her slowly, as if relaxing for the first time in centuries. Sarathia finally said, "Come. There is something I wish to show you." Aaron nodded and followed her as she led him through the quiet corridors of the ancient palace. The walls glowed faintly with violet energy, responding to her presence. They descended deeper, past guarded halls, into a long chamber filled with starlight. The ceiling was transparent stone that displayed the full sky above. "This is the Hall of Eternity," Sarathia said. "Every ruler of my people comes here only once during their lifetime." Aaron looked around in awe. The chamber felt sacred, silent, endless. "Why bring me here?" he asked softly. "Because I want you to understand me, truly." She walked to the center of the hall, touching a large crystal pillar. The stone glowed and rose into the air, spinning slowly. Within it, Aaron saw visions of her past, her childhood training, her first battle, her coronation, her long, lonely years of leadership. "Everyone sees a monster," she said, her voice low. "A queen of fangs and shadows, a ruler who drinks power and fears nothing. But inside, I have always been alone." Quote, Aaron stepped beside her, watching the images fade. "You don't have to be alone anymore," he said. She looked at him sharply, as if trying to find a lie in his words. But humans were easy to read, and Aaron was not hiding anything. Sarathia touched the crystal again, and the room changed. Now, a new image formed an unlit space within the palace, shaped like a pair of wings folded around a heart. "My people have a ritual," she explained. "A ritual for choosing a partner. Not a servant. Not a political ally. A true companion." Aaron blinked. "And you're showing me this because?" "Because no other being has ever been worthy of it." She stepped closer to him. "And yet, a human, a fragile, reckless human, has shown me more honesty in a single moment than anyone has in a century." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "When you reached for my hand, you changed something in me." Aaron's heartbeat quickened. "Sarathia." She touched his wrist lightly. Her fingers were cool, but the touch felt warm, almost comforting. "You said I looked lonely," she murmured. "But I no longer feel that way." Aaron swallowed hard. "What do you feel now?" "I feel curious, hopeful, alive." She stepped so close that he could see faint star patterns inside her eyes. "And I feel that you, Aaron of Earth, may be the one who brings balance to my long existence." Aaron took her hand gently. "If you'll let me." Her wings opened slightly, just a small movement, but meaningful. "I will." They stood there, neither speaking, letting the silence hold them like a promise. The Hall of Eternity glowed brighter with their combined presence, responding to something ancient and instinctive. After a moment, Sarathia said, "The ritual is simple. I place my trust in you. You place yours in me. Then we protect each other from all that tries to break us." She lifted his hand. "Will you accept it?" Aaron's voice was steady. "Yes." The crystal pillar brightened, sending a soft light across the hall. Sarathia held his hand between both of hers. And for the first time in her life, she spoke the ancient vampirian vow. "Where shadows rise, I stand. Where stars fall, I hold. With this bond, I choose not a servant, not a throne, but a companion who walks beside me." Aaron took a breath and answered in simple human words, "I choose you too." A warm glow surrounded their hands, sealing the ritual. Then the chamber dimmed again, peaceful and calm. When the glow faded, Sarathia looked almost shy, something Aaron had never thought possible for a being like her. "So," Aaron said softly, "does this mean we're Partners? Yes, she replied, letting a small smile show. Partners. As they walked back toward the celebration, the palace guards stared in shock, bowing deeply. Word spread quickly. In the hall, dozens of species turned as the queen entered, her hand still in Aaron's. Murmurs, whispers, disbelief filled the room. But it didn't matter. Sarathea held her head high, her wings lifting proudly, and Aaron walked beside her without hesitation. One diplomat whispered, "The human. He chose her?" Another replied, "No, they chose each other." The music softened. The lights dimmed. The crowd parted as the queen and the human crossed the hall. Sarathea paused and looked down at Aaron. "Are you ready?" she whispered. "For what?" "For the galaxy to talk about us for the next 1,000 years." Aaron laughed. "Let them talk." Sarathea gave a soft, genuine smile that made her look less like a feared queen and more like a woman who had finally found something she never expected. A partner, a friend, a reason to look forward instead of backward. Together, they stepped into the center of the hall as equals, and the entire alliance watched in stunned silence. The alien vampire queen, once overlooked, once feared, once alone, had found her chosen companion, and the human who reached for her hand became the one she would choose again and again.